This is the No More Wasted Days podcast, and we're your hosts, Sarah Kaufman Bradstreet
and Heather PG. Grab your favorite NA drink and listen as we share vulnerable stories so you never feel alone on your alcohol-free journey.
And gain insights from us as we break down our most used tips and strategies that have kept us alcohol-free.
It's time to break free from wasting any more of your days to the drinking, blackout, hangover cycle.
Welcome to another episode of the No More Wasted Days podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sarah.
I'm Heather.
And we are talking about a hot topic today.
Yep, we are going to talk about people pleasing, and I have an unpopular opinion about it, so stay tuned. And I have also some frequently asked questions and scenarios that I get asked in my one-on-one coaching. So I think this is going to be a good one for y'all.
I think it will be too. And it's something I was telling Heather that I feel like I could do a call or she could do a call in the Daymakers each month on people pleasing, and it would be the most attended call because whenever we do something around this topic, people are there. They want to know, how do we break this cycle? How do we overcome people pleasing? And especially in our alcohol-free life, because I don't know about you, but I would drink to numb out from the constant people pleasing.
Yeah. I didn't even realize, if I'm being honest, I didn't even realize that I did it to the degree in which I did it.
Yes. And now I catch myself more and more. And I can say that I'm getting better at it, but I still will feel it stressing me out. And I have to stop and be like, whoa, what are the tools? So today we're going to give you guys the tools. And Heather did all the research on this topic, so I'm going to let her take it away.
So I like to define things and put it in perspective. So people pleasing is simply the tendency to prioritize others' needs and desires over your own. This is usually expensive because we put it over our own well-being, our own needs. This can lead to resentment, anxiety, and burnout. I think in the context of living alcohol-free, like you've already just chosen, you're going to try to be alcohol-free or live alcohol-free. People pleasing can manifest in various ways than before when you were a drinker. For example, you might feel pressured to drink at social gatherings or worry about disappointing a friend who may not understand your choice to be sober. And I think it's important to recognize that people pleasing stems from a fear of rejection and or conflict. We might think that making other people happy, that by acting, overdoing, overacting, under-responding, what have you, that we are going to be accepted and loved. However, the irony here is we're not loving ourselves, and it's a way that we can stay further disconnected from ourselves when the whole point of quitting drinking is to be more connected with ourselves and others.
I feel like you hit on so many things that made me look at myself and go, oh yeah, especially that it stems from the deep-seated fear of rejection and conflict. Oh my gosh, I talk about it a lot, that a lot of why I think I started drinking more is because when I would drink, I would feel, this sounds so stupid, I would feel cool. I would feel so fun. And that's when people seemed like they liked me more. And I have always been a person who feels like they are on the outside of the circle. Never had that super close circle of friends, or else that's the feeling I tell myself I have. So is it true? No, I have close friends, but it's the story that I tell myself. And seeing that, I'm like, oh, this makes perfect sense. I also hate conflict. So anyway, I can avoid it, even if it's at my own detriment, which I'm getting a lot better at.
Yeah. And I think when we think about conflict, for me, and this can be a whole nother episode, when you are a people pleaser by nature, that just being assertive can feel like a conflict.
Yeah, it really can. And sometimes it's just by saying things like, oh, I'm not going to go to that because there's going to be alcohol there and I'm not comfortable with that. And maybe it's with your partner and they're saying, come on, just go along. It's not that big of a deal. But to you, it is a big deal. And it's learning to set those boundaries and then feeling like you're letting people down when you're setting the boundaries. It's all interwoven together.
It is. So a personal example is I have a 4-year-old, and I caught myself this summer in the throes of people pleasing my 4-year-old. What do I mean by that? She wanted what she wanted. I did not want to deal with her response or reaction by holding the boundary. So I gave in, didn't hold the boundary, and it did not serve either one of us any purpose long run, because yes, I was delaying the meltdown and it's not setting her up for success in the future. And I see people do this, myself included, and people have done it toward me. They didn't want to handle my reaction, so they didn't tell me certain things, or they left out a certain part of the story. When had they just been honest or head on said, Heather, here's the deal. The reaction is less in the long run, if that makes sense. So I think when we're people pleasing to delay a reaction or avoid conflict, it can create distrust when we omit certain information or we delay the timed response, so to speak. Then it can create more conflict down the road, because then you're trying to course correct, then set the boundaries. People are like, wait, this feels like left field. Or me, I will be like, why didn't you just tell me that in real time? Then I don't trust you.
It's like you just jumped inside my brain and you were like, I know this is what Sara does. I know you didn't do that. But I was like, oh my gosh, when you're saying like leave out certain parts of the stories, I hate, I'm going to admit this to the world right now. I do this with my husband. I'll be like, I'll just bring this part up a little bit later because I know it's going to irritate him because it's going to throw our schedule off on, say, the build or what we're doing around our land. And I'm like, I'm just going to leave this out. And as it gets closer, I'm going to tell him this part. And I'm like, why do I do this slow drip? Because it causes so much stress with me and it never goes well. I'm like, and I do it with my sister. I do it with my parents. I totally see that in myself so much. So I needed to hear that today. I'm going to therapy with Heather.
Right? Who knew? Who knew I could
Yeah.
see inside your brain across the country?
I'm so glad you can.
But I do think it's important, truly, to think of like, do I do this to protect myself maladaptively because I don't want to deal with their response, reaction. I don't want to deal with the boundary right then and there. Very few people, I think, are willing to say what you just said, especially like on a podcast where it's like, damn it, I do this.
I'm just telling basically the world because anybody can come list. I know
Right.
I thought about it for a second. I was like, don't admit this.
No, it's good that you did.
I think it's really important because I bet I'm not the only one, you know?
Yeah. Now, listeners, you got to let us know if Sara and I are alone. If you've never thought about it from a self-serving perspective. Now, there are obviously some times where you need to hold the information and it's not the best timing. But if you catch yourself like consistently omitting or over delaying the response to avoid your own discomfort, that is where my unpopular opinion lies with people pleasing, is that I think because the word please is in the phrase, that it sounds nice.
Yeah.
And it is nice. We are putting other people's needs over our own, but is it really their need or is it our need to just not want to deal with the shit?
Yeah. Oh, it totally is that. It's totally the last thing.
I totally do it. And I didn't arrive to this unpopular opinion without not doing it myself and thinking like, the only reason I'm over here like, I'm just such a people pleaser is because it sounds nice. No, I just don't want to deal with the shit.
Yeah. No. And you know, I look at the term people pleaser as a very negative thing. When I say admit that I'm a people pleaser, I'm like, oh, I hate that about myself.
6 months ago, I would have rather just not even admitted that I had these tendencies, let alone had a long history with people pleasing because I had such a negative connotation. But for me, like that means that there's something to unpack. Or if it's like your identity, one or the other, you know, like, oh, I have to go out of my way for the neighbor and then I have to take this person to this procedure. I just had a procedure on Monday, so it's fresh on my consciousness. But like, think about like why you're doing the things. Are you doing the things so that you look good for other people? Or are you doing it because you really want to do it? And if you're putting out all these fires for everybody and you're kind of known for that person, could be like a big key of like why you drink a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You're not able to give to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm having to take it all in right now and kind of go, yeah, oh yeah. And I lead calls on this. Like I know this stuff, but sometimes when you just hear it at the right time in the right place, it's probably because my parents are moving here very soon, like at the end of the month. And I'm starting to do I should start thinking about this and this, like setting the boundaries. But at least I keep telling myself, at least you're thinking about it right now. You're thinking about those boundaries. Whereas I think drinking me would have just been like, oh, we'll work it out as it comes. And I think that no, I need to be ready to set some boundaries.
Yeah, for sure. That is the key part of people pleasing. And when we think about how does it impact, this is a really good segue, Sarah. How does it impact our sobriety journey? So if you're constantly trying to fit in your new alcohol-free life or in life, you may find yourself where drinking feels inevitable, leading to slips. Like if you're constantly like being like overextended, it's going to create more stress, more anxiety, and you're probably going to have a slip around it. If you're constantly trying to fit in with every crowd, it's exhausting.
Yeah, it really is.
Then you're neglecting your self-care, where you're focusing on others so much that you're not thinking about your own needs, which is absolutely crucial, valid, especially like no matter where you are on your journey, but especially in the beginning. Sarah, you and I hear folks say this all the time, like, I feel so selfish.
Yeah.
Because you're actually taking care of yourself. It's kind of like if you're a people pleaser, you may feel aggressive when actually you're just being assertive. Like right now, you're just attuning to your own needs. So you feel selfish, which is also another oxymoron because when you drink, you're really selfish. Or I was.
Right? Oh, I was too. When I would drink, it was when I was like, the world revolves around me. I'm the most important person in the world, which maybe was part of that. Like I finally feel like I fit in because it was just all about me and I wasn't even seeing the whole picture anymore. And it is just interesting to me when people have that struggle with just being alcohol free, having that be like, I feel so selfish. Because you have to tell some people, I'm not going to drink with you anymore. And their reaction may not be this loving, kind, warm reaction. And then you feel like, oh, well, maybe I'll just drink so they don't feel this way. And it's like, hell no. It's like, would you just take some heroin so maybe they don't feel this way about you? No.
Right.
If you're on this journey, you're doing it for you, you're here for a reason, right? Then you need people who are going to cheer when you say, hey, I'm not going to be drinking anymore. I know it can be a change. I know with spouses, it would be the hardest. And I know my story. I'm very lucky that Ryan and I just quit together. So it was never an issue. But there were times when one of us would take a break and one of us would not. And it was awkward. It would put a little strain on the relationship.
I think it's really interesting that you said that and how people forget that you can people please your spouse and children. I bet.
I feel like they're the people I people please the most.
Exactly. I was going to say, I bet if we took a poll, it would be like, oh, yeah, that's who I people please the most with is spouse and children or partners and children.
I'll turn off all the lights in my kids' room so my husband doesn't get mad. And so they don't get in trouble. Just like, let it be. I'll go through, I'll be like, oh, Owen didn't put away his controllers to the Xbox today. I'm just going to get it done so he doesn't get in trouble. And so then Ryan doesn't even have to get irritated by it. And sometimes I'm like, what are you doing? And it's like, those things are little. I feel like those are kind of like, it's a little thing. But sometimes I just need to let everybody else have their relationship and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you are not alone in what you just said and how common that is. And then once you start doing it, then it's like, it's natural. Like you take an inventory of like, if I do this, it's going to upset this person. And then it's going to cause like a trickle down effect, for lack of a better expression. And then no wonder we want to drink.
Right. One of my friends just got a shirt that says, I'm too sober for this shit. And I don't know how many times I look at my husband and I go, I'm too sober for this shit. Like, I was like, I got to get that shirt and I got to get it in 7 different colors so I can wear it every single day.
Yes.
So honestly, right now, I'm like, oh, we are in the throes. We are just in the beginning of raising teenagers. And it feels like too much.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm definitely too sober for this shit. But in the same sentence, I am so glad I'm sober for all of this.
Yes. And we could have one that says, like, I get to be sober for this shit.
Yes. Oh, yes. We need to do that.
Speaking, and the last point on this one is the fear of authenticity. Now, it doesn't make sense to be afraid of being yourself. And people are terrified to be themselves. I am sometimes. I know other people are, especially when you're new to your journey, because maybe you don't know who you are. Maybe you have no idea what you like. You don't know what to talk about. It's like, Sarah, when you say be interested, not interesting, like we're learning all this stuff for the first time in a lot of cases. So like there is a lot of fear in being yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And the more we can please people, the more we can mask our feelings.
Yeah.
As a person who deeply struggled and struggles with feelings, if there's a way to mask my feelings or out feel something, I'm going to find it.
I hear you there. I'm so with you.
So I think that like by focusing on other people, we don't focus on ourselves because we don't want to deal with how we truly feel.
Yeah.
The cool thing is you don't have to say everything you think, which I have to work on that as a person. And you can slowly figure it out and like use the strategies. And the more that you don't constantly people please, the more you can set these firm boundaries and feel like I'm pretty good with being this way or that way, even if it's a negative, it's simply data or perceived negative.
Yes. It's something too that I feel like was just brought up today in the Daymakers. Like people's worthiness is wrapped up so much in how other people perceive them, which then makes it hard for you to like relax, hard for you to just take a day where you chill because you feel like people are judging your productivity. At least that's how I am. Let's be real, it's me. But I'm just like, no, I gotta start being like, sometimes I need to do a little couch rotting. And it's okay. And it's all right. If people are having judgments about me, that's on them. That's not on me. But that is really hard to kind of sit with and say, like, are some relationships causing me to be inauthentic to myself? And I know it's happening for me when I feel like I'm having to walk on eggshells in my own house. That's when I kind of go, wait a second, this isn't okay. I shouldn't be having to act this way so my kids don't get irritated. So, so I'm not rocking the boat. It's just like, no, we've all got to coexist. So how can we overcome all this? Fix us.
Well,
fix us.
I will give my best couple tips. Okay, boundaries. I love boundaries deeply because when I see that they're set to keep the relationship far more intact than people pleasing ever will. Long game. A short game and long game. So, listeners, practice saying no. I tell the Daymakers a lot on calls, you will be voluntold if you don't practice saying no.
Yep.
It could be as simple as an invitation that doesn't feel right. It could be practicing with somebody you do not know at the grocery store.
Yes.
You can just say, no, thank you. Or you can put a buffer. Some people like buffers. One of my favorite boundary buffers is if I had a magic wand, X, Y, and Z, because it makes it less direct feeling, even for yours truly who loves direct. It can put that buffer if I had a magic wand, although I do not, And I'm from the South, so like it takes us forever to get to the point in a lot of ways, but like it can buffer it other than just no thank you. And make a list. If you're early on your journey or if you're not, we have the holidays coming. Make a list of your non-negotiables and your negotiables. This will help you determine what your boundaries even are.
Yeah.
Sarah, it made me think about you with your parents moving to live where you are. Make you a list of like what you will not do and what you could be molded to do if necessary or need be. And think about things, especially on your journey, like if it doesn't serve your purpose or you at all, the answer is no. And it feels weird. And if you're like me, you used to be terrified of changing the plan or like this is what we do every year. Guess what? You can change the plan.
Yeah. It is definitely allowed to be changed.
So that's my little boundaries spiel. And then self-compassion. And I thought about this the other day when I talk about self-compassion a lot because I like the word grace. It just doesn't land for me. I was working with a client, and the opposite of shame is self-compassion. And I think that's why the word lands with me better, is because if you feel shameful, the opposite of feeling shame is feeling compassionate, right?
Yeah.
So remind yourself it's okay to prioritize your own self. And I also think about this too. I prioritize drinking a lot.
Right.
It's the least I can do to prioritize HP for a minute.
That is probably the biggest statement right there. If you were able to prioritize your drinking, if you were able to set up boundaries so you could drink, you can do it to take care of yourself. And I definitely did those things. And I mean, most of us did. Let's be
Right.
real.
It's like when I was researching boundaries with self, I was like, I used to set a lot of boundaries for myself so I could drink. So how can I set boundaries with myself so I can be the best version of me that I can be and move through the world in a healthier way than I did in an unhealthy way? So treat yourself the way you would treat your kid, your partner, your friend, if they were trying to set new healthy patterns. You wouldn't be like, now, Sarah, you better not take care of yourself. You know, I wouldn't be like, Sarah, stop taking care of yourself. Stop resting. You better continue to lie to yourself and everybody else. No, I'm going to be like, Sarah, like, let's push off from here. Let's dust ourselves off. We've got this. Like, what can we do today to pause and take a step back and reevaluate? And if I talk to you the way I did in the first scenario, I hope that you wouldn't want to be my friend anymore. Truly.
If somebody was always saying, come on, just do this. Who cares about these goals you set for yourself? Let's do this other thing instead.
Right.
Yeah.
And learn to communicate openly. And I say learn because people, myself included, often think that we're good at communication. It's so painfully obvious what lives in our head, to the point I was talking to a friend the other day or texting with a friend. I completely unintentionally omitted one key piece of why something bothered me. And I was like, well, no wonder I'm frustrated. I didn't say the one thing because it was so obvious in my brain.
Yeah.
And just try to communicate as clear and open as you can when you're talking about, well, anything, and especially like as it pertains to alcohol free, being alcohol free. What do I mean by that? If you're not drinking, tell people.
And that is really hard in the beginning.
It is, but like, you don't have to like, see, I just did it. I had the sentence in my head, but it didn't come out right. So like, if you're going to go eat dinner with a friend, tell the friend ahead of the dinner so that you're not stuck in this like, well, they've ordered wine, then now what do I do?
Yeah.
Tell them. And you really might be surprised at how understanding people are, or just say, doing Sober October. But if it pertains to the best version of you and they're going to be there, just let them know ahead of time, like letting the host know. You know, I'm not drinking. I'm going to bring tonic water or whatever, just so that you're not like in the moment of, well, if you get in a people-pleasing moment where you want to drink to fit in or not say it out loud because then you don't want to make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's where communicating openly can be really, really key.
And that is huge in the beginning. I still don't want to make people uncomfortable with my not drinking. I notice that still in me, that I'm like, I'll have this feeling where I'll be like, I hope they don't think it's weird that they're having a drink around me and I'm not having a drink. And I'm just like, it doesn't matter. They're having a drink around you and you're not having one. And any feelings they're having are theirs. Like, let it go.
Yeah. And like reflect on your values, because if you value integrity, which is where your insides mount your outsides, and you're people pleasing a lot, then this may really be for you, right? And being honest, think about your values.
Yeah.
Align your actions accordingly.
That one is huge.
Yes. It helps the need for external validation so that we're not finding that in people pleasing.
And for me, I go back a lot to, well, one of my core values is family. And then I'll be like, so that means make my family happy. And then I have to be like, okay, the family's not happy if I'm not happy. And I'm not happy if I'm putting out everybody's fires. So
that's a good way to reframe that.
Yeah. And it is really, you just have to find that balance, because when I say my value is family, I think more what I think some think is that I hope my kids look back and think their childhood was really fun. I hope my kids look back and have really fun memories of their mom. So that's more than lends itself to like my core value of joy. That means I need to live a life that's full of joy. And sometimes that will mean setting boundaries and not people pleasing all the time. So it's kind of a confusing circle I went in there, but I think it made sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I think by like joining a community like the Daymakers or any group of like-minded people, if you want to practice these type of things, which may sound really cheesy, or you're like ahead of a big social event and you're going to be like, okay, y'all, I need some buffered sentences around why I'm not drinking. That's where the community can be helpful. Or coming to calls for self-improvement, because the more confident you are in yourself, people pleasing doesn't become as high because you're going deeper with people who want to go deeper about their growth, about their journey.
Yes. And I think it's huge within the community when people say, I'm doing this thing this weekend and I'm really nervous about it. I'm nervous that people are going to either pressure me to drink or find it strange that I'm not drinking. And the suggestions that start popping up when that happens, it's just like an endless resource. And having any sort of community for that is key. I mean, even for me, I've got my Sober Tahoe Baddies group in Instagram, and those are women that I'm going to lean on probably for a lifetime, where I can go, oh my gosh, this is happening in my family. And when I do, it'll be like, me too. That's what I'll hear. And just that is the validation I need sometimes. And I go, thank you. That's what I needed. Like, it's just having a community is really cool. So if you don't have one, check out the Daymakers or find one in your area.
I think anytime you're committed to being the healthiest version of you and you can find others, do it.
Yes.
Like for me, there are people within the Daymakers that I know I can text about certain things because they've been through it. And I'm like, I've never been through this before. Can like you take a quick phone call, or what are your suggestions?
Yeah.
And it takes being vulnerable to do that. And I would rather be vulnerable than not feel like I suck on the inside with that internal battle going on constantly. So,
and somebody else can help point out. They can even say, hey, you're being a people pleaser right now. I see this and it's causing you a lot of stress. Let's figure out a different solution.
Exactly. And a frequent scenario question, which we've kind of touched on, is how do I handle friends who insist on pressuring me to drink?
You ditch them. No,
you're right. That's not your friend.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's not, we're going to give you real advice.
But it really is. People do it. I've seen it. I've done it. I've pressured other people to drink.
Oh, yes.
And I think it's like anything. If you stand in your decision, stand firm, and you could say, this may sound like a smart ass, like, I appreciate your concern, but I'm choosing not to drink. And I say that it may sound like a smart ass because I think some people like, I appreciate your concern, but like, you could just be like, I hear you, and I'm choosing not to drink. Or you can say, no, thank you. Or if I had a magic wand, I wouldn't have had to retire early or something. You can even make it humorous.
Yes.
You can just say, no, thank you, and move from the situation. Or if you have a friend that's like, are you still doing that stupid alcohol-free challenge? You can be like, well, as a matter of fact, I am. Ahead of time, you know, like if they're pressuring you ahead of time, if they're pressuring you ahead of time, they are going to pressure you there.
Yeah. And I think if you can nip it in the bud as fast as possible, and especially like if somebody does say, you still doing that little alcohol-free thing? Yeah, I am. And it's changing my life. Something, it's an easy sentence, really powerful. Or, yeah, I am. And I hope you can support me.
Yeah.
It's those little things that if you've got them in your back pocket, and I know this sounds so stupid, practice saying them in the mirror.
Yes.
Like say it a few times so it just rolls off the tongue, and it will be so helpful. Practice saying it when you're in the shower. Just practice those sentences so it is easier.
Right. And keep in mind that truly true friends will respect your choice.
Yes. And the thing is too, when I said ditch them, obviously there is a there's a little bit of a learning moment for your friends where they kind of go, are you taking this seriously? Because maybe they've seen you try to take a break from alcohol before and you didn't. And this time you are. So they're kind of waiting for you to be like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. And they're just, misery loves company. So they're hoping you'll come back to the drinking side. And when you're not coming back, they keep going, well, I wonder. But having a really direct sentence for them can make them start to go, oh, this is different than last time. This is something new that I see.
It's kind of like a client that I had last Christmas. It's like, what do I say when people try to give me wine for Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
Like, no, thank you. And they're like, what? Like, just say no, thank you. Or if they're like, still drink that bottle of red, you don't have to lie. You can say no. And I love this new thing, this new brand of kombucha.
Yeah.
And
how
then
smart would that be?
when they're going around at work trying to make the Christmas list, they just want what to put on the list.
Yeah.
It's not like a big, like, what's Sara doing? I think that the person making the list was voluntold. They were people pleasing. They're resentful about making the list. And I speak to myself, can you tell I've been the person that made the list? I just want to make my list. If you tell me that you like a very odd barrage of things, cool.
I'm writing it down.
I'm writing it down. I'm
Yeah.
putting you in the gift card category because I don't know what to do with said odd barrage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just want to make my list.
And you know what? The thing is, too, like a lot of non-alcoholic drinks are kind of spendy, so we don't treat ourselves to them often.
Yes.
So if people are asking, what do you like? It'd be a great time to be like, I've really been wanting to try these recess mocktails. But when I look at the price, I can't justify buying it for myself, and I probably never will. So that would be an awesome gift because I will probably never buy it for myself.
Yes. Kind of random sidebar, but I do think it's a frequently asked thing.
Yeah.
Like, how do I handle this?
Yeah.
Just tell the person with the list that you want recessed or that you don't drink and that you would like a gift card or whatever.
Yeah. Give me dark chocolate.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other one is, what if I feel guilty for saying no to social events? Notice I did not say, what do I do when I feel guilty? What if I feel guilty?
Yeah.
Well, you got to say no in order to know if you feel guilty or not.
Yep.
And if you feel guilty, it's natural to feel guilt. And I want you to think, would you rather feel the guilt that you said no or the guilt that you said yes? Then throw in some shame because you've drank over it. So try to focus on like the quality of your time spent with, and no matter where you are in your journey, quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And attend events where you feel comfortable and supported. And if you're anything like me, I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin, let alone in the wild.
It takes a while. And there's even still moments where I just don't feel, I'm like, that's just not quite for me. And maybe it's somewhere where I have to go, like it's a work thing and it doesn't sit right. I just tell myself, you're going to feel awkward. No one else is really going to even know you're feeling awkward. And you're going to feel a lot better the next morning knowing that you chose not to drink. So it's the kind of what if I feel guilty saying no to a social event? Think to yourself, what if I feel guilty because I went to a social event and I chose to drink?
Yes.
So put yourself in the other side of that what if, and then say, what if I go to the social event, I feel really awkward while I'm sober, but I wake up the next morning and I didn't drink? Just walk yourself through the different situations. And I feel like there are some social events where you should just politely say, no, I won't be there for that.
I agree. And I promise you, as a person who has worked deeply on what other people think, nobody is thinking the whole time, why isn't Heather there?
Right.
I promise you that.
Yeah.
I have no doubt. Because when people do not come to events that I hold, I do not think, why is this one person not here?
Yeah. Normally they've told you ahead of time. And it's so when you phrase it that way, I think to myself, oh yeah, so-and-so called and they're not going to be here because their kids have this, that, or the other. And I don't think any way about it. Like, I'm not like, well, I'm going to obsess about that. I bet they're lying.
Right.
I bet that's not true. I'm going to follow their social media to see if they slip up and post what they're really doing.
Oh my God.
Like, oh my God, that's not what anybody's doing.
Right. I would get distracted before I looked it up on the social media to see if you adhered to your story. That made me laugh out loud, Sara.
They're so focused on themselves, they're not thinking about you.
Yes. And I'm glad you said that because people also ask me, or they'll tell me, well, I don't like to lie. And I'm like, I don't want you to lie. I don't like lying. And what can we come up with that is brief, true, and necessary to get you from A to B, whatever the goal might be?
Mm-hmm.
And if people do look up and cross-reference your social media, they're not going to tell you.
Oh my gosh, right? And if people do, they got a lot of free time on their hands.
They need to sign that. They need to sign up for the list. It goes around and says, what do you want?
Yeah, they need a job.
Christmas. They need a task. So just in like reflections, people pleasing is common. It's normal. It's how we were raised, particularly women, and especially cultures play a part. And we are often looking for validation, or we want people to be happy. And we are really afraid of conflict. And then we talked about a couple of scenarios, a lot of scenarios actually, and then how we can try to kind of reframe this whole people pleasing thing, which is setting boundaries, being as clear as you can in your communication, and looking at your values to help you determine your boundaries. And it just helps tease out the noise that people pleasing can create, and, get in community with other folks who are wanting to improve so you can get some encouragement and you don't feel so isolated on your journey.
Yeah.
And this is so mired in alcohol that could be like a whole nother episode. So,
oh yeah. So I want to know, what's your unpopular opinion?
That it's selfish.
That people pleasing is selfish, or that alcohol is selfish?
Be. Well, alcohol is selfish, obviously, but people pleasing is selfish. It can be.
I totally agree with you. Because why are you people pleasing most of the time? To make things easier for yourself, or so you think. But then you're stuck in this loop of, oh, I'm such a people pleaser. This is stressing me out.
And it pisses dependent people pleasers off to hear that it is selfish. And I can see why, because people pleasing has the word please in it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think it can be very selfish.
I definitely agree. And when you frame it that way, it makes it easier to be like, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore. Because if you're people pleasing, you're thinking, well, I'm not selfish. I'm taking care of everyone else first.
But really, you're avoiding yourself. So that's selfish, right? Now, if it were like selfless acts, that's one thing. But selfish, like we're avoiding ourselves, that is pretty selfish. So
I'm glad you shared that one.
That is my unpopular opinion. And it will piss some people off. And if I'm wrong, I want to be wrong. Trust me, I don't want to always be right. I want to hear what y'all have to say. I really do. I don't believe it's 100% selfish.
No, we don't understand that it's selfish when we're doing it, I don't think. But when you stop and you look back, you can go, oh, that wasn't actually my intention, but I can see that.
Yeah. So, Sarah, so you agree that it's a little bit selfish?
When you first said it, I was like, it's selfish. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it totally is. It's like a light bulb went off in my head. A light bulb went off. A light bulb went off. That's the saying. It's like a light bulb went off for me. And I went, oh, like it really is. That is what it is. And when you look at it that way, then why do it? Yeah. If you're doing it to try to please everybody else, so might as well get into the selfless acts. I like
selfless.
That.
There is a difference.
There is a difference. And think about that instead. And I feel like that switch for me, that might be my biggest takeaway.
I'm so glad. Yes. My work here is done. I'm just kidding.
You fixed me.
All right. So cured in less than an hour. So share this if you think that it will land with your other friends. Say like, I was just having this conversation the other day. Share it with the person. Get their hot take on, is people pleasing selfish? Yeah. And leave us a rating and a review. It helps us stay visible, reach other people. And we'll be in your ear next week. Bye, y'all.